It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, July 19th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that has a lot of questions about Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson going into this season.
Me too.
Yeah, we're going to dig into what their current status is and then what the forwards will look like based on all of that information, plus some Flyers news and your mailbag questions, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there. Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. And we as a show are on Instagram and Threads at Locked On Flyers as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on today to get started. You can subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, a little bit of mostly Phantoms news yesterday in that they added an assistant coach to the staff in John Snowden. Isn't that like a Game of Thrones character?
It's Jon Snow.
Or Jon Snow. That's correct. That's right. No, all kidding aside, John Snowden actually has a really strong coaching background, and most recently was with the Toronto Marlies, so a really strong AHL program. So glad to have him aboard. And then a really fun hire for the Phantoms in former player Chris Gratton as an assistant strength and conditioning coach. Went back to school and got a degree in that and is now pursuing a career. Glad to have him back in the organization as well.
So is that a new position for the Phantoms? It seems like it is.
You know, I don't know the answer to that. The news is very new as of recording of this, but I assume that it's been part of the system before, but they haven't really talked about it this way.
I'm 50-50
So,
about it.
yeah, I don't know, but it's good to have additional support in that area. Plus, they have a new equipment manager team of Jake Rogers and John Evans. So, welcome aboard to those guys as well.
Yeah, nice to see.
Yeah. In addition, the Flyers officially made the Alexei Kolosov loan to Minsk in the KHL official. We knew that going into it when he signed the ELC that they were going to do it, and they have
part
to
of the deal.
Yeah, so they officially did it as far as the paperwork or whatnot. So that is all set. As of recording, still no news about Morgan Frost, but we said it would be in the next week or so.
Yeah.
So we still got time in our prediction on that front. In the meantime, we have been wondering, I think, behind the scenes, as have a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of you out there, about what exactly is going on with Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson, and what is that going to mean for the Flyers this upcoming season in terms of how the forward lines are going to be set up, what the structure looks like, as well as how successful the team could potentially be and what kind of scoring they're going to get and what kind of full game are we going to get from the forwards and what kind of style of play is Torts going to be able to put out there. And so we're going to look at what the Flyers forward situation is with and without these guys. I think looking at Sean Couturier's situation, as we remember, he has had 2 back surgeries. The last game he played for the Flyers was December 18th, 2021. So he missed a season and a half. As we recall, throughout the course of the season, they kept saying, oh, he might be back. And then on April 1st, as is befitting that day, they announced he would not play for the rest of the season. All that we've heard over the last couple of months is that he's on the right path to being healthy to start this season. Obviously, camp will tell.
Yeah, so I mean, the last time he got hurt was non-contact, right? And then so that's still a little worrisome because he hasn't had contact in years. It's almost two. It'll be like almost 2 years. That's a long time. So he is going to have to get through the rigors of a game and through the hits of a game to see. And they're going to have to play him in preseason to find out. I know people are going to be like, oh, don't play him in preseason, but you're going to have to because he
Yeah.
hasn't played hockey. Like there's just no way around it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very important. And there's always this cost benefit and risk analysis into
Yeah,
playing like your top players in the preseason. When do you bring them in? How long? How many minutes do you give them? And so not only is he going to have to readjust to just being in an NHL style of hockey with the game and the speed and the hitting, but also just being in shape,
right.
and he can work out all he wants, but you never really know if you're in shape until you actually start playing and see what the wear and tear is like on a day-to-day basis, especially following the back surgery and what kind of pain is going to come up and
And the
what kind of
travel.
maintenance. Yeah.
Like when you have a back injury and you've, recovered from it, sometimes travel is still tricky. And that's another, thing that sort of can wear you down.
Yeah, especially not sleeping in your own bed could make a
Right.
difference,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Yeah, if you're not
So,
going somewhere that has a sleep number and you're used to a sleep number, like who knows?
yeah, as us old folk know, just the slightest thing can throw your back off
Listen, I've got a
for a
piece of
couple of days.
plywood. I have a piece of plywood under my mattress.
Wow,
And I feel
that
my
is
back.
hardcore.
It is, but I feel my back reset like twice a day as a result, and it really helps me. Now, when I go on the road, clearly that doesn't happen, right? So I do feel it. I do.
Yeah, and I think, with Cam Atkinson, we're in a similar situation here, right? Slightly different because it's different surgery. So he had the neck surgery
Yeah.
in December. As we recall, it took them a while to decide what surgery or what path forward they were going to take with him because there were pros and cons to the different options. There were some questions, and so he got multiple opinions. Went to Columbus, got an opinion there,
But then
and
he had to
so
get it done, right? Like all of a sudden his
yep.
arm was getting tingly and they were like, no, 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 you got to just do this now.
Right, and so, with this particular injury, it's a similar but not the same injury as Joel Farabee had and the Jack Eichel situation. So Joel Farabee had the same surgery as Jack Eichel. Cam Atkinson had the other kind of surgery for this type of injury, and so, there are risks to it in terms of fitness and in terms of mobility, right?
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely the fitness part. Like I think, he could do a certain amount of skating and get kind of close to it, right? He was doing that last year until he got hurt, like you said, in that preseason game. But the rest, he hasn't been hitting over a year either. So he's another guy that's going to have to go through contact in camp and go through contact in at least a couple of games. Like there's no way of just hiding him and saying, "Oh no, no, no contact." Because the thing about that is you're just as much at risk being rusty in a game and getting something, getting a hit or taking a hit rather, that you may have been able to get out of the way of if you were kind of used to what was going on. Oh, your timing was back. All that takes time.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And so there's going to be a lot of risk, a lot of careful attention paid to what kind of skating they're doing, what kind of activity they're doing, what their minutes look like in the preseason. And, I certainly hope there is at any rate. And so I think that there are going to be a lot of questions about those two all the way up to when they announce the roster for the season. And um, given all that, I think that to me, regardless, the two of them will be playing limited minutes to start the season if they are deemed fit and ready
Yeah,
to
there'll
go.
be some sort of load management. Maybe they don't play back to backs. Maybe they don't go on every road trip. Like it all depends on the degree. So that's what fans have to sort of be ready for. You can't just assume they're going to be like, oh yeah, Couturier is back and he's the number one center, and Atkinson's back and he's the number one winger. You can't count on that anymore.
Exactly. And so I think that's a great segue into our next segment where we're going to look at those lines and say, okay, to start the season, assuming they're healthy and ready to go, but are still going to be, carefully managed in terms of their minutes, what does the Flyers lineup look like in that scenario versus the ideal scenario when they're at 100%? And those are very different things. And we are going to talk about it coming up next.
Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet 20 bucks and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's 200 you could spend betting everything from the money line to the over under to who you think's going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
Just one quick reminder again, we are in our off-season schedule now. So we've got shows Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So on Friday's show, we are going to dig into your votes on our first summer poll on who is going to take the biggest step forward for the Flyers. There's a link to that poll that's over on YouTube in the show notes today, and eager to hear what y'all think out there on that. Now, looking at the potential forward lines, I think you have to make a couple of assumptions going into the season here, aside from the health of Couturier and Atkinson. So, yeah, you're going to assume that they figure out the goalie situation. So there's only two on the main roster somehow, and so they're going to have a full 23-man roster, which means there's going to be two spare forwards on the team.
Right.
So given that as our baseline, I think to start the season, you put Couturier at 2C and Atkinson on the wing on the third line.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I think it's a good way to sort of let them dip back into the pool. I kind of like it. I think that makes sense. Like you said, it's a shame that Wade Allison is probably the man out, or he's going to sit out a fair amount of time and get in once in a while. Here's what the argument would be from me, and people can like it or not like it. It doesn't matter to me. I don't really care. If Wade Allison looks like he's going to be good, but the coach is playing Nick Delorier just because he likes Nick Delorier and he's a good penalty killer, that won't cut it with me. I would rather have Wade Allison in the lineup, especially if he's going to be healthy, because last year he was mostly healthy. And if he's able to do that, then I would say, why in the world is Delorier in there when you've got this kid sitting around? That would be the issue I could have.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the fourth line, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think I'm with you there. I think that knowing Tortorella, he's going to put Delorier in there in that circumstance, but you never know. The remit may be different this season,
Right.
and the conversation may be different based on what we've heard so far. But I think with putting Couturier at 2C instead of 1C, I think that means you have to figure out, okay, who's your 1C, and obviously then your two options are Morgan Frost and Noah Cates, right?
Yes.
And to me, you put Frost in that spot because he can take the faceoffs better than Cates right now.
Yes. Yeah, no question. He's worked at it a little more. He also, Frost and Farabee have pretty good chemistry. Tippett too. There's some good chemistry there that I wouldn't want to mess up either.
Yeah, so that would be your top line for me, would be Frost centering Farabee and Tippett, because I think that's enough combination of youth and speed and playmaking versus shooting. I think that's a good combination based on what the Flyers have for a first line. And then your second line with Sean Couturier, you put Travis Konechny and Tyson Foerster with him.
I like the line. I don't know if Konechny will like being on the second line because he's more of a top line guy on this team, but I get why he's there.
Yeah.
To kind of help out Couturier, but also to teach Foerster. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think it's because Couturier is going to need the support, and Konechny is the guy that can give it. Like, he is the experienced guy that can do most of the things on the offensive side of the game, and has enough I could think hockey IQ to cover some things defensively if Couturier can't. And then that leaves Tyson Foerster open to just do his thing, right?
Yeah, and then Torts would say like, "Hey, we don't have a top line; we have 4 lines." Like that's how he would,
Yeah.
sort of paint that picture.
Yeah. And then so you have Kate centering that third line with Cam Atkinson on it, and Scott Lawton as the other wing. I think
Hmm.
that's just your solid third line with some veteran
Yes,
presence there. And I just think that fits with who the personnel is.
it does. No question, it fits. I like it.
And then your fourth line is Ryan Paling centering Hathaway. And then, to your point, should it be Allison or should it be Delorier? My gut says Delorier in this scenario, but I would not be disappointed if Wade Allison was that guy either.
No, I mean, if Allison plays well enough, it should be Allison. Like, sorry, Nick Delorier, but you get it. You don't have to play every game. Uh, Allison could still have a future with the team. Delorier's got a limited future with the team.
Yeah, so and then there's room on the roster for one more forward. You get somebody that's a tweener that's like could play center. So to me, that's Lazinski or Jackson Cates.
Yeah,
But really, it could be one of a number of people as well, depending on who they decide to keep on this team versus get the more minutes down in Lehigh Valley, right? That's going to
yes.
be their priority decision. And I think Jackson Cates and Tanner Lazinski are guys you can bench and not feel as bad about it, right?
Yeah, no question about it. And yeah, there's no Patrick Brown this year, so if there's an injury, they would have to
Mhm.
figure out like who the other center is going to be. That's fair.
Yeah. So then, if and when they're healthy and they can play more minutes, that's when you move Couturier up to that top line.
Yeah,
Maybe you think about bringing TK with him and switching Farabee to the second line with Frost and to keep Farabee and Frost together as a pairing in that circumstance. And then you could maybe move Atkinson up to that second line as well to get more minutes and to be able to take more shots because that's his thing, right?
yes. Yep, that is his thing.
So I think, the question then you have at this point is if one or both of them are not ready, that is this circumstance to me where you have the potential of somebody else making the roster.
Mhm.
That's one of the other prospects. And I feel like there's only 4 that are in the running. But correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's Denoye, I think it's Ali Lixel, it's J.R. Avon, and it's Bobby Brink.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I do. And uh honestly, Avon, it's a bridge too far. Like he's not going to be that guy. Uh Denoye will get some looks because he had that experience.
Yeah.
We just have to see if he's going to be able to score at this level. If he doesn't score at this level, it's going to be kind of hard for Elliot Denoye to find a spot. So that's going to be his thing. Ali Lixell, look, we like him. He's not getting a shot. Like he's just not getting a shot. Even if he does great in camp, he's not getting a shot. He would really have to rip it up in the AHL to get that shot again. That's just my feeling. It may be unfair, but that's not what I would do. This is just my feeling. And Brink, I still don't think he's ready. I still don't think he's ready for the pace yet. I think other things in his game are ready, but not the complete overall. And I don't think you should bring him up until he really starts ripping up the AHL, which he hasn't really done yet.
Yeah. So the question is if Atkinson and Couturier, let's say, are not good to go at the beginning of the season, like who moves up in the pecking order here? And do they just have a reduced roster until they see which of these prospects are ready? Or do they call up Ollie Lixel because they know he's had at least the experience with the team and can sit on the bench? I mean,
Well,
what do you think there?
if it's just one of them, then most likely I could see Lazinski if he's healthy getting that center spot.
Right.
Allison then gets to play, and guess who gets to be the left wing? Nick Sealer.
Oh God. I always try to block that from my brain that they've had
Oh
Nick
yeah, you forgot
Steeler.
about that, didn't you?
Well, we're trying to forget about that. But I certainly hope, given the pool that the Flyers have, that they do not find themselves, unless there's like a crazy situation on a road trip where they can't get somebody there and there's injuries, that we do not see Nick Seeler forward this season.
Listen, I think John would do it whether it gets crazy or not. He's got that in him. So I can't say he won't do that because there's too many guys. I can't say that.
Well, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that it does not happen at all this upcoming season. What I do also hope is that both Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson are healthy enough to return to the lineup. But
Yeah,
again,
sure.
you got to manage their minutes and
You
manage
do.
expectations at the beginning of the season. I would not pencil Couturier in as 1C to start the season.
No.
I would put Cam Atkinson on that third line. Like,
Yeah.
just that's the smart way to manage them, I think.
Yeah, and the matchup's a little easier. The amount of minutes they would get is less. It all makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a bunch of your mailbag questions to get to, and we are going to do that coming up next. All right. So we've got some good mailbag questions, a couple of repeat askers here, which we love to see. That y'all are into this segment on the show, but we love to get new people asking questions as well. So make sure you get those questions in each week for us to answer. The first one comes from Ryan, who wanted to know if we had listened to or talked to the other Locked On hosts about the Flyers drafting Michkov and what they thought about the pick. And let you in on a little thing. We have a group chat, and it went off a little bit a couple of times when teams above us did not take Michkov. I think especially the Locked On Canadiens hosts were a little bit disappointed
Yeah,
in their pick.
I can see
And I
that.
think that, they felt a lot similarly to their pick of Reinbacher this season as we did last season when the Flyers took Cutter Gauthier instead of David Jiricek. That we like the pick. It's a good pick, and they like Reinbacher. They just really would have liked to have had Michkov in their system and wanting to go for that skilled offense.
I understand it. I do, and I can't blame them.
Yeah, I think, the top 3 teams were very happy with their pick, but I think after that, in the 4, 5, and 6 slots, there was a little bit of consternation
Oh, yeah.
about it. I would say especially from the Habs and the Arizona host as well. I think, the Locked On Blue Jackets host, Jay, thought it was a great pick at 7. Also a little resentful that he's going to be in division to compete against in a few years, when Jay thinks that the Blue Jackets are going to kind of hit their stride as well. So hates to see that competition there. And then Hadi, the Locked On NHL Prospects host, chimed in as well. And you may have seen him on our reaction video that I did on draft night. But he absolutely thinks that Michkov was a top 3 talent who only dropped because of the uncertainties about Russia. And he said that it was one of the best picks of the draft overall. And I'm going to agree with him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We'll see. We'll see how it all breaks out. I might say he's probably the 4th best pick, but it's quibbling. It's fine.
Yeah, so yes, we absolutely did hear from our fellow hosts when the Flyers took Michkov. I think a lot of people were especially a little miffed that it was the Flyers, because we've got some rivals in the group chat.
Well, I think it's that, and they probably were expecting the Flyers to do the same old, which this year they didn't. And if they'd watched the show, they'd have realized we were off that and realized that they would do something different. But it took a lot of convincing to get me to think that way, and a lot of people.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. William wanted to know if either of us have a feeling as to Tyson Foerster being on the main roster in this upcoming season. William is of mixed feelings as to should he spend the year in the AHL or move up.
I'm okay with him moving up if his skating looks right and his shot's a little more accurate than what we saw in camp. In last camp and in that last little scrimmage game, he didn't look great, and we both talked about that. So we got to see a better Tyson Foerster come into rookie camp and eventually training camp for that to happen. If he does look better, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think Torts really likes him as well. So I
He
would
does.
say he's like the one sort of up and coming prospect that is the most likely to have a Flyers roster spot. I'm not sure what more time in the AHL will do for him at this point. That's really my issue here. It's like with the other guys, I think the AHL will do them some good, and I think with Tyson Foerster, it's just adjusting to the NHL and getting things fine tuned.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So Charles Lesky 2932 on YouTube wanted to ask about Cal Petersen. He thinks that there's a few teams that might need a goaltender, and the Flyers should trade him and retain 50% of his salary. What do you think?
I mean, how many salary retentions are the Flyers going to have? Like, it's just there has to be a limit, and I think this is the limit. Cal Petersen's got to prove it to everybody else. Essentially, he's had one really good NHL season. That's it. And he's 28 because he came in a little older and then spent time in the AHL, went back to the AHL. So even in the AHL playoffs, didn't put up good numbers this year. So he's really got to prove it. Who wants that even at 50%? I don't think anybody.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, is that the Flyers sort of had to take him
Yes, to
in
make that
as
deal.
part of to make that Provorov deal. And so I think that it would really be difficult to even get somebody at 2.5 million to take Cal Petersen. And I don't like adding more to the dead cap either for multiple years. I think
Right.
that's part of the problem as well. Robert Foster 6197 was talking a lot about the various moves that Danny Briere was making. Did not really like most of them. Is a very interesting post over on YouTube. But specifically asked, why get a second first round pick and waste it on Sanheim 2.0? Who's going to feed Michkov when he comes over?
Well, I mean, you don't really know at this moment. Maybe it's J.R. Avon. Like, you don't really know. Maybe Faraby's still around. He should be. So it could be him. Maybe it's somebody yet to be drafted. Maybe they get the first overall pick this year and it's Max Celebrini. Then you're like, wow, that really worked out. So it's a little too far away to kind of nail down that way.
Yeah, and I think that having multiple of a type of defenseman is never a bad thing. Like, you always want that same type in the queue, like 4 or
Mhm.
5 years behind, and that's exactly where Oliver Bonk is, like 4
Right.
or 5 years behind Sanheim in development. So, I don't have any issue with that, and I think that Bonk has the potential to maybe be better than Sanheim is at this point. We'll
Yeah, I would
see.
say so too.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know yet, but I don't think it's a repeat of a pick
No,
exactly in this circumstance, and you need good, puck moving defensemen. So
you do.
always good to have a guy like that in your prospect pool. All right, that will do it for today's show. Just a reminder, we'll put the link to our first summer poll in the show notes and get those votes in. We'll talk about that on Friday and the latest Flyers news as well. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.